Hey loves, just here to bring you the weekly message. After our conversation on Saturday at the prophetic pour, I thought it would be helpful for us to really examine how we are stewarding our time. We had a lengthy conversation around our time, around staying focused on where God is bringing us and leading us. And it was just such a healthy, and rich conversation that I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper. So if you didn't get a chance to attend the prophetic pour, no problem. Go watch the replay. It's there and it'll bless you just the same. And for those of you who did attend, then you know what I'm talking about. But I wanted to give us 3 scriptures to kind of guide us as we are thinking about how we are spending our time, especially as we are getting ready to enter into a new month. And so the scriptures that I want to bring to us today are Proverbs 16, verse 9, Proverbs 21, verse 5, and James 4, verses 13 through 14. Read them in whichever version makes the most sense for you. But I wanted to bring us here first, starting off because today is Monday, unless you're watching this later on in the week, then hey. But many of us are entering into the week, entering into our jobs already with a predestined schedule, already with a clear sense of how we are going to spend our time this week, whether it's spending our time in our businesses, spending our time with our families, spending time with our jobs. Now, if we're keeping it real, most of the time we don't actually have our family and our personal time mapped out as much as we keep tabs on our job schedules. And a lot of times, the reason why it's hard to say no to things is for that very reason. Most of the time, we have overemphasized how we are going to spend our time at work, that the things that need to happen for our personal, for our families, for the things outside of our jobs tend to fall by the wayside easily because we aren't as intentional. Most of the time, we aren't as intentional with planning those things, actually getting it onto a calendar so that way you can actually see it and expect it and anticipate it. It does make it a lot harder to say no when you already have something standing in the way. Now, that's not where I'm going for today, but I wanted to first start off with Proverbs 16, verse 9, which reads, a person plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Now, how many of us, and I'm speaking to myself too, have started off our day today or started yesterday just seeking God to say, God, how do you want me to spend my time this week? 9 times out of 10, most of us are going to answer and say, we didn't, right? Because we just know how this week is going to go. We just get into the flow and it just happens, right? But this really stood out to me because if we are allowing God to guide our lives, then it's important that we are also sitting with him to really see, God, how do you want me to be utilizing the time that you gave me? See, it's not our time. It's his time, ultimately. And so, therefore, we should be sitting with him to make sure that how we're going to utilize and spend our time is according to his will, is according to his purpose. And now I'm not trying to be overly biblical about this, and you'll see why I'm going there in a second, but making sure that the same way, if we were to get into our car to go to a new destination, that we would enter it into a GPS, unless we want to be stuck somewhere and lost. We would put into the GPS our location and allow the GPS to give us the best steps to take, the best direction to get us to our destination. Well, our lives are similar. God has already predetermined where we were going and where we would be. And so therefore, we shouldn't enter into traveling the destination without consulting with the person who should be leading us, right? To understand and recognize what is the best steps to get there. And so if God is the one who directs our steps, then we must consult with him to determine how to go about reaching our destination, reaching our destiny, reaching the promise, reaching the vision that he's given to us. All right, so moving on to Proverbs 21:5. I want us to be mindful that we don't procrastinate on the things that he tells us to do. So often we get caught up. We have our list, even if we sit with God and we're like, God, what do you want me to do? What does this week look like? How should I prioritize? And we write them down and we get them into a schedule. And then the week comes, and then what happens? We slowly start to shift those things off of our plates, right? And out to the side to put other things that seem more urgent in the moment there. Now, don't get me wrong, there will be times where that might be necessary because emergencies happen. But you will know in your heart and you will know in your gut what are those things that are emergencies for you or emergencies for somebody else to handle, right? And a lot of times we have a hard time saying no if we're just keeping it real. So Proverbs 21 verse 5 says, the plans of the diligent lead only to plenty, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Now, there's two words in that scripture that I really want us to pay attention to. The first one is diligent. The plans of the diligent lead only to plenty, right? So the plans of those who show care, the plans of those who are conscious, right? And have a consciousness of where they're going and the steps that they're supposed to be taking lead to plenty. But everyone who is hasty, so those who are moving quickly without considering the plan, without considering the steps that God told you, without considering the vision he gave you, where he's trying to bring you, those who make decisions in haste without considering those things come only to poverty. Well, what is poverty? Poverty is when you are extremely poor, and not just financially. It's when you have an insufficient amount of stuff, an insufficient amount of something. How often do you find yourself saying, man, I don't have time? Poverty. How often do you find yourself, because you moved in haste, you put too many things on your plate, things that don't belong to you, you've taken on, you said yes because we just don't know how to say no. We're going to work on that. And so you're left in poverty of emotions. You can't give to those when you get home, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your kids, whether it's yourself. You're lacking patience, poverty. And so poverty doesn't just mean that you won't get a financial reward, financial benefits or gains. Moving in haste also means that you won't have what you need. That's why you feel like you're pouring from an empty cup. You're depleted. You're empty. You're living in poverty. And a lot of times we can adjust our schedules to get back on track, back into alignment, to allow ourselves to just flow again. So moving on. I'm moving on to James 4, chapter 4, verses 13 through 14, because I want us to keep in mind that we are not guaranteed tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised. And so how many times have you found yourself saying yes to other things and saying, you know what, I'm going to put these things off. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it the next day. I'll do it, including going to the gym. I'm speaking to myself. But the things that are important, the things that God is telling us that we need to do, we should be doing, we have to do them. He has a perfect timing. So there's a reason why he has placed it on your heart, your mind, to do the thing. And so often, because we moved in haste, we can't shift things around to be able to make space and room for what it is that he's calling us to do and asking us to do. And so we put it off for tomorrow. But James chapter 4, verse 13 through 14 says, now listen, you who say today or tomorrow, we will go to such and such town, stay there a year, conduct business, and make money. You do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. You don't know if you have tomorrow. So the things that you are putting off that God told you to do today, start the business. Write the plan. Reach out to that person. Come to a place of forgiveness. Yeah, I'm coming down some of y'all streets. Go to the gym. I'm going to come down my own. The things that he's telling you to do is for a purpose and for a reason. It's either to prepare you to make sure that you're prepared for whatever he's about to do tomorrow, or because based on his timing, there won't be time for you to do that tomorrow. And so it's so important for us to also keep in mind that what we say tomorrow to, ultimately we're saying no. So if God told you to do something today and you say tomorrow, we're telling God no. If God told you to go and rest and you're like, no, I can't rest. I got to do this. And you keep taking things on, what you're telling God is, my plan is more important than yours. So no. Right? When you say yes to people at work, because this used to be really true of me. Yes to people at work because they aren't managing their side of their time and their work and everything else. They've mismanaged something. Yes, there are times where God's going to tell you to pick it up. But if you don't seek him first, going back to the first Proverbs 16:9, right? Where the Lord directs your steps. If you don't seek him first to say, God, should I? And you're not always going to have time to sit in an hour of prayer. Sometimes there's going to be a gut feeling that comes over you. Listen to that. Because you know, when you say yes to those people, it does a couple of things when you say yes, when it should be a no. One, who are you saying no to by saying yes to them? Are you saying no to your children? Are you saying no to yourself? To your health, to your wealth, to whatever? Are you saying no to God because God wanted you to say no to them because you were supposed to go to the grocery store? Now, you thought you was just going through the grocery store, but God had somebody there in the grocery store that he needed you to come and cross paths with, to be the light on this earth, because maybe that person is going through something. Maybe he wanted you to sow into that person because they having a hard time, and he wanted you to be able to pay for their groceries so that way they can get through. See, we don't think about things like that. And so that's why I felt like this message was just so important for us to sit with this week and to continue what we started on Saturday at Prophetic Pour around being in alignment as we walk into February. And so I want you to take these scriptures. I want you to meditate over them. I'll repeat them again. Proverbs 16, verse 9. Proverbs 21, verse 5. James chapter 4, verses 13 and 14. And here's what I want you to do. On your lunch break, the next break you have, the next second that you can sit still and quiet, I want you to first sit with God and say and ask him, God, what is my priority for this week? Lord, order my steps. Where do you want me to be pouring into this week? Who do you want me to be pouring into this week? And I want you to write that down. And then I want you to go to your schedule and I want you to see, do you already have it in your schedule? Does it align? Is there alignment between what God said he wants you to do and who he wants you to pour into and focus on and how he's telling you to do that? Is there room in your schedule for that already? If there is, great. Stick to it. But if there isn't room for it, I need you to get into your schedule and determine and figure out, where is the sacrifice? What do you need to move off your plate? And delegate to somebody else. That's a whole nother story for another day. But delegation is something that I think we should speak about next. Because there's a reason why we should delegate. But do you need to delegate it to somebody else? And if you're somebody who has a hard time doing that, pray over it, right? And just say, God, listen, the same way Mary prayed over her husband being able to receive the fact that she has conceived and it ain't from him, pray over the person who God shows you to delegate these things to, that they will receive it, and then leave it and trust God. And then just pray over your schedule. Make sure that you've moved everything out of the way. Move it out the way. So that way God can have his way. All right. So I know this week's message was slightly long, somewhat a biblical boot camp, but I pray that it encourages you, that it uplifts you, that it gives you something tangible to be able to do and walk into your week and do. And I ask that you come back, you let me know, how did this work for you? Was it hard? What was hard? Was it easy? Right? Are you already walking in alignment? I want to celebrate you. I want to celebrate those who even try this and you're like, yo, this is hard. Right? We're here. We're a community. We're gathered together. Please let me know how I can help you. And I pray you have a blessed week. Amen.